evening. Welcome to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Did you know that 565 Canadians are diagnosed with cancer every single day? What that means is that in the time it took me to just say that last sentence, one more Canadian will have just heard the words, "You have cancer." Well, there's nothing like the big C to remind you of what your priorities are in life and to make you realize that what you once thought was important may no longer be the case. Tonight we have a panel of guests who are going to share their journey with cancer with you and how they have been able to cope or help others cope along the way. I'm pleased to welcome here in studio with us tonight two cancer coaches from the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation. Bonnie Elliott does one-on-one and group coaching with individuals and their families. She's a woman of many talents, a nurse practitioner, registered psychotherapist, and a yoga teacher. Welcome to the show, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Melina Ladouceur, a social worker who specializes in community health and is also a cancer coach. Thank you so much for joining us, Melina.
Thank you, Barbara.
Later in the show, we will be joined by breast cancer champions and business owners Julie Booker, who owns a mobile wig fitting business, and Colleen Canna, who left the high-powered world of finance and accounting to become a successful clothing designer. So make sure you stick around to hear their stories. And if at any point you have questions for our guests, please don't hesitate to call into the show at 613-728-1001. They're happy to hear from you. So cancer coaching, what is it?
So cancer coaching is about helping people take control back. So probably the best place to start is to tell you a little bit about why our community in Ottawa felt that this support was so needed. We hear from people every day that when they're going through cancer, they feel like they're losing control and losing hope. They are experiencing a whole range of emotions. They don't know what the future has in store. And they're trying to navigate a complex healthcare system and may not know where to go or even what they need. And that's why we developed cancer coaching. Cancer coaching is where we partner a licensed healthcare professional with a person who's living with cancer and their family. And that coach, that healthcare professional acts as a coach. And they really focus on the person and not the cancer. And working with the client, the starting point is always helping them in focusing on what's most important to them. For one person, it may be help in preparing questions for their first appointment with an oncologist. For another person, it may be, how do I tell my kids? For someone else, it may be managing side effects or getting back to the things that are important to them after treatment's over. And so the coach works with the client, they make sense of what's happening, and they develop a personalized action plan. And the client develops the skills that they need to take their life back in spite of cancer.
Bonnie, what are some of the demographics of your clients?
Demographics in
terms of men and women, and what are their ages, what are their backgrounds?
We see people from all walks of life, men and women. We also see caregivers. So we'll see the person living with cancer. We'll also see people in their family who are providing care for them. And we have a group for kids who have a parent going through a cancer diagnosis.
And do you both play a role in all these programs, or are there some programs that you specialize in, Melina?
Yeah, so we all do individual coaching where we meet with clients and help them in an individual way. And we also do groups. So Bonnie and myself lead a couple groups. So we do the Working Cancer Survivorship course, which we'll talk a bit more about today. We both do the CLIMB program for kids who have a parent living with cancer. And we're also involved in a retreat called After the Bell. And Bonnie and I both have a couple other programs that we run, so there's quite a range of programs.
Now, what's the cost for these programs? Are they typically subsidized? Does insurance cover the cost?
So individual coaching is completely funded by the fundraising efforts of the foundation, so people can do up to 5 hours of one-on-one with a coach for free. And our CLIMB program is also subsidized, so that's completely subsidized. It's called Children's Lives Include Moments of Bravery. We do a bit of cost recovery for some of the other adult programs and some of the retreats and whatnot.
That's good to know for people out there who are struggling financially, and they probably take a big hit from having to leave work work for a while, I imagine.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of hidden costs to having cancer.
And that's sort of a segue into the program that you wanted to focus on tonight, which is returning to work when you have cancer. What are some of the challenges that come up? And when cancer patients, when they recover and they're ready to go back to work, is it usually something that they feel like they have a milestone to celebrate? Or is it more like, oh my God, I need to go back to pay some of these bills?
I think it's a little of both. It's the idea that, okay, I'm putting treatment behind me, I'm ready to go back to work, is a milestone. And often people are really excited about the idea of going back to work, but it's a hurdle too, because of all the, there's some, even if treatment is over, there's often lingering side effects of treatment, and financial, sometimes people do go back to work a little bit too early because of the financial barriers. But it's also meeting with a coach and having a plan to go back. And I spoke to someone today and he said, I was just planning to go, I'd finished my treatment and, I'd maybe take a week to recover, and then I was going to go back to work on Monday morning, and go back full time.
Is that realistic?
Well, he just hadn't, he's never gone back to work after cancer before. So we talked about, well, would it be more realistic to go back a little bit more gradually and to kind of test the waters and see because a lot of people are really struggling. They may be past the nausea and the hair loss and the more dramatic side effects of treatment, but they have the more lingering things like fatigue and brain fog, and it's hard to focus, it's hard to concentrate. So going back a little bit more slowly and a bit more consciously can make for a more successful return to work, for sure. So
there's a lot of focus on some of the physical side effects of cancer and treatment, like, as you mentioned, hair loss and fatigue and brain fog and things like that. But what's not talked about as often is perhaps some of the spiritual aspects of going through cancer, emotionally, cognitively. Can you speak to that, Melina, in terms of what you see your clients grapple with and how they arrive at solutions?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people think, if they haven't gone through it, that life goes back to normal after treatment, and that's not always the case. So a lot of people are coping with a lot of fear around recurrence after having gone through everything. I have quite a lot of clients who think, who come see me and they're saying, I was doing fine through treatment and now I'm falling apart. And, we see that quite a lot, that people, the anxiety, the fears, all that can kind of come after, because when you're going through treatment, you're so busy trying to,
your mind is occupied.
Exactly.
You're not ruminating.
Exactly. So it's after that it can catch up a lot. And so for our clients, we do coach a lot of clients around coping with fear of recurrence and the impact that can have in their readiness to go back to work at times. I think something else we see for people after going back to work is that sometimes the loss of confidence in themselves, having been away from the workplace for sometimes quite a long time for some people. And I think because of, as Bonnie mentioned, the cancer-related fatigue, the cancer-related brain fog, which can be completely, people feel it completely exhausted, and it's different from normal fatigue. It's some clients have described it as, I have to lie down on the kitchen floor because I can't move another inch. So it's a kind of fatigue that hits people out of nowhere.
And this is well after treatment has ended.
Yes, yeah, it can last a while after. So, and brain fog, where they're having difficulty remembering things or multitasking, and so all that impacts their confidence in going back to work. And so people can going back to work feel like I'm not as sharp, and everybody sees it when people don't always see that. So there is a whole emotional side, and as coaches we hear that quite a lot and support people through that.
I've heard from many people that there's nothing quite like the act of just getting older and all the life experience that comes along with it to really lower your threshold for nonsense. Yeah. And I imagine coming face to face with your own mortality really lowers your threshold for nonsense, and some of the things that you put up with before you may not be willing to take anymore. And how does that play a role in people's decisions to go back to the workplace that they never really enjoyed that much in the beginning, but continue going back to pay the bills?
Yeah. We often see people going through the work and survivorship program or through individual coaching who make significant changes in their lives after a cancer diagnosis. And it may be that they go back to the same job, but there's a shift of priorities. They said, I don't want to have nothing left at the end of the day for my family. I want to do work that's meaningful. I want to give back. I want to engage. Sometimes people make a radical career change, and it's exciting to see some of it. As we see people go through the 8-week group, and at the end of the group they have a chance to sort of to look back on their lives and think about something that really was important to them. And it's not always job, really. Sometimes it's their life's work. Sometimes it's about their raising their kids, or writing they did when they were younger, and to see them reconnect with that passion in a different way, and like you said, not as fearful about what people think, but it's like, I'm ready to seize life by the horns now because I've been through cancer and I can, and
I deserve it.
Or just what this is important to me. So we see it's a combination, right? There's sometimes a loss of confidence or a loss of, I don't know if I can do my job. I don't remember my phone number, and without thinking about it. But as that confidence comes back, and as they get to develop some tools to work with the brain fog and the fatigue and stuff, we often see a real shift in how people look at their lives. And
what are some of the most extreme examples of career transitions you've seen after cancer? The most extreme changes?
I had a client who worked in government and who I remember was calling me from the office and who was, I can't do this, and was just went off work, took a couple sick days, and we did some coaching, and she ended up pursuing a passion for being a fitness instructor. And I've had other clients who've made complete shifts to something, some clients that were really environmental products or supporting people with cancer, and who have made shifts to that type of career because it's that helping profession that they want to focus on something that's important to them or something that helps others.
Finding meaning becomes more important.
Definitely.
Yeah, I want to hear more about some of those tools that cancer patients and their families have at their disposal. So when we come back from the break, we'll be talking about that in greater detail, as well as welcoming some breast cancer champions to talk about their own life experience. We'll be right back after the break.
The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Blue Planet 2. The discovery continues. Saturdays at 9, only on BBC Earth.
Oh, hi, how are you? My name is Dylan Black, and welcome. We have another very impressive episode of Daytime Ottawa for you on Thursday, right here on Rogers TV at 1 p.m. with repeats at 6 and 11. The amazing Scott McClelland will be here. He's a magician. He's one cool dude, and he'll be talking about the next edition of Magic Mondays at Live on Elgin. We'll learn about the Special Olympics as well in Ottawa and their upcoming Indulge event. It's happening Thursday right here on Rogers TV, live at 1 p.m.
Been some talk about this, and it's going to materialize here. Chmielewski, shot scores! Shot scores! What a shot!
67's action on Rogers TV.
Uninterrupted coverage of speeches from Ottawa's business leaders, visionaries, and social figures. Watch new episodes of Podium at its new time, Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m., exclusively on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. We're in the studio tonight to talk about how to cope with cancer with cancer coaches Bonnie Elliott and Melina Ladouceur. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Before we went to break, we talked a little bit about reintegrating into the workplace when you have cancer. And so I wanted to ask you, how can you support a colleague who has been away battling cancer and has just come back to the workplace? What are some examples of things you shouldn't say or do? Did you want to start, Bonnie?
Yeah. That's a huge fear for a lot of the clients I speak to who are going back to work. They're like, I just don't want to face everybody. I'm afraid they'll either say nothing at all, or they'll say, they'll kind of gush and pity me, or you know, or they'll kind of catch me off guard at a meeting. I think what you should say is you're glad to see them and welcome back, and we missed you, you know, and kind of take your cue from them as to how much they want to share or not share. Or
because some people want to talk about it all the time, and some people want to keep everything to themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think, Melina?
I've had a lot of clients who've told me that when they go back and people say, you look great, everything's back to normal. You know, it's not bad to say that someone looks great. I'm sure nobody, you know, doesn't like being told that. But to be told that everything's back to normal or that you're fine now, you know, you can't see cancer-related fatigue. You can't see cancer-related brain fog. You can't see fear. And so those aren't always the best things to say. Like Bonnie said, it's often saying, we're glad you're here. How can we help you? How can we, you know?
So keep it simple, and I imagine that your clients don't want to feel patronized either. We actually have a caller on the line. Katrina is joining us tonight. Katrina, are you on the line with us?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Katrina. Thanks so much for joining us. Did you have a question for our guests?
I do, actually. I was wondering from like a caregiver's perspective, how would you encourage someone who's close to you in your life and who wants to go back to work after a cancer treatment, but they're lacking confidence or like motivation to go back? Like, how would you encourage them and support them in doing that?
That's a great question, because I think the caregiver piece is often missing from the conversation.
Yes.
What do you think, Melina?
Yeah. So thank you for asking, Katrina. And I think that's a great question. I think that by being there for them, by listening to them, by helping them to find the things that they're doing well and helping them to notice those little things. I think people naturally think, well, I never remember anything, or I'm getting everything wrong. But catching the times when they're, doing something, when they're remembering things, or they're doing, and letting them know, you are, and encouraging them for sure to have a gradual return back to work, because that will make it easier on them, and just being there to listen, I think, is the most important thing. Sometimes people don't want you to fix it, but they just want you to be there and to let them talk about it, that it's hard for them. But to be there to listen, but to also be, someone that believes in them.
Did you have anything to add to that, Bonnie?
Yeah, just maybe a couple of practical things that clients I've spoken to have done. And one is to simulate a work environment. Get up, put your makeup on, get dressed, drive to a coffee shop and sit and do your taxes on a laptop or something for 2 hours, and see what that's like. See what your energy is like after doing that, and sort of wade back into it. So the first day that you go back to work isn't the first day that you've navigated all that stuff, because often the things that really tire you out are not. It's not just the work, it's all the stuff that you have to do before work and after work, and the commute and
the small talk.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Katrina?
Yeah, that does. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, if you're a caregiver and you're suffering exhaustion, what are some of the tips that you might offer to someone who has cancer that they love in their life, but they're on the breaking point because it's so emotionally exhausting? What do you think?
So I think that if you're a caregiver and you're exhausted, the first thing is to take some time to talk about it with someone. Doesn't matter who. It might be a friend, it might be coming to see a coach, but just start with talking about it and what you're going through, and just start to do one small thing for yourself every day. And that can be something very small, but just something to have a bit of a break from what you're going through. Even if that break is 5 minutes, a 5-minute walk, just starting to get some time for you is important. And proper sleep, in our myself and another of the coaches, we run a full-day caregivers workshop, and in that caregivers workshop we talk about the importance of starting with good sleep, getting good food in you, getting some exercise, how those are the first foundation things. When you're a caregiver, those are the first things that go out the door, and so just starting to work on one of them can help you.
That's like what they tell you when you're on the airplane. You have to put the oxygen mask on first before you attend to everyone around you. I have a question about cultural attitudes. I've come across certain cultures where cancer is simply not spoken about. And how do you approach clients and their families who come from those backgrounds where it may be more difficult to have those honest conversations?
We did I did a health fair once where we had our logo, the Cancer Foundation, and there were people who literally crossed over so that they wouldn't talk, because cancer was such a taboo word. But we have a lot of partnerships with sort of key people in different cultural groups who have been really open to going and talking to people in their community about what we do and about cancer, and to kind of demystify some of the taboo and the stigma about cancer. But definitely there are, I think it's generational too. I think there's in all cultures, it depends on what your experience with cancer was. If your experience with cancer was that people die, it's not necessarily going to be something that you want to talk about or share, and some people are more private about their health than other people. So we try to bridge some of those barriers. We have cultural interpreters. We have, we invite people to come with their families or with a community member, and it's starting. We're seeing a lot more people from different walks of life and from different parts of the world who want to come and talk to a coach.
Is it always better to talk about it than not?
Well, I think you don't necessarily have to talk to a professional about it, but I think when people bottle things up, also when you don't talk about it, you don't get a chance to ask questions or to get information that you might not get if you were, sometimes when we don't talk, we assume that, and we don't realize that there's this resource that we could have accessed, or I think we really need to respect people's privacy and what their comfort level is. But I think there is a place for networking, and sometimes it's not going to a support group. Sometimes it's being matched with one person, maybe one person who has a similar background to you or a similar experience, who has had cancer, who you feel comfortable talking to.
Melina, have you noted any differences between men and women in terms of how they cope?
I think in terms of coping, yes. I think, every person's different. We tend to notice that we do see more women that come for coaching more than men. We're actually working on, we've had a couple focus groups with men, those who have access coaching and those who haven't, to find out how can we make men more likely to come for coaching. And so we're learning a lot from the men, and I think the needs are sometimes different. I think a lot of the guys that come are looking more for the practical kind of side of it, and I think coaching is a really an approach that works really well for women and for men, because it always starts with who you are, what you want. It's very goal-oriented and action-focused, so for a lot of men, that works really well for them. And for a lot of...
It's more linear as opposed to touchy-feely.
Exactly. So I think I also have an example when Bonnie was talking about the cultures. I had a client I remember who wanted to come, who came to see me for coaching, and her primary goal was she wanted to better understand her diagnosis and her treatment options. And she, you know, explained to me when they came to tell her about her diagnosis, and she told me she just kept telling them, just tell me how long I have to live. And she, you know, we were talking about, you know, what was her, you know, what type of stage of cancer it was, and it was actually very early stage. But she explained to me that in her country, if you are diagnosed with cancer, you're going to die, because that's the reality in the country she's from.
Huge cultural difference.
Exactly. So as we were talking about it, she had a lot of questions about what does this mean, and you know, as we talked about what that meant, she realized that she wasn't dying. So, and you know, and she wanted to understand her treatment options, and so there were some resources that we were able to look at where we could actually look at decision trees and different different options for treatment. So she kind of got to see like a visual of, this is where you're at, and these are the treatment options you could pick, and then this is what happens next.
Some powerful realizations there. You offer a lot of different programs, but the one that you wanted to emphasize tonight was the one on re-entering the workforce. Maybe we could pull up some of those details up right now. That's starting in April, and it's 8 weeks long, correct?
That's right,
now there is a small cost that's involved if someone wants to attend and absolutely can't make it financially. Are there some options where they can be accommodated?
There is. So they should sign up to meet with a coach, and from there we'll help ensure that they can take part in the course. So,
and as you mentioned earlier in the show, everyone gets 5 hours for free.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, that's good for people to know. You know, you've got lots of other programs, as you mentioned, for kids, for family members, for caregivers, for people in all stages and walks of life. Do people just give the foundation a call? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So so a couple of things they could do. The best thing to do is actually if they go on our website at ottawacancer.ca, they can click a button to sign up to meet with a cancer coach. They fill out a registration form. It takes about 5 minutes, and from there we give them a call and we book an appointment with a coach. It's as simple as that.
That's perfect. Now we just had a question come in from our Facebook Live audience, and they wanted to know, do you offer coaching for caregivers? And I believe you did mention you absolutely do.
And we define caregiver quite broadly, so it doesn't have to be a spouse. It can be an adult child who's caring. It can be a friend.
It's also great to know that we support caregivers. We support them at any point. So it could be their loved one could be newly diagnosed, in treatment, post-treatment, end of life, or they may have passed. And we do support through bereavement as well. So
that's excellent. And you're open 5 days a week?
We are. And we do evening appointments as well.
Wonderful. It's so good to know. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming in and sharing such valuable information for such a broad segment of our population that is affected by cancer.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. When we come back from the break, we'll be talking with breast cancer champions Julie Booker and Colleen Canna, who will be sharing their life experiences and their own unique inner wisdom with you. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Celebrate Ottawa is a collection of stories for, by, and about the people, places, and rich history that make Ottawa such a vibrant place to call home. Tune in Sunday evenings at 7:30.
It was my daughter's birthday. She was blowing out the candles on our cake when we heard coming from the TV. So we stopped and listened, and it helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of my daughter's birthday, because now she gets to keep having them.
Number one for good times.
Oh my God, this is my song. I've been listening to the radio.
Number one for favorites.
She can hear those church bells ringing, ringing, and up in the loft at home.
Number one for for new music.
Even when I'm 1,000 miles
Number 1 for country. Country 101.1.
My name is Bara Adi and I'm a volunteer at Rogers TV. I love most about volunteering that I do give back to this community, and I love the experience I'm gaining. This is my major and I really do love it. I do it with passion. As a newcomer, I wanted to feel that I fit in the community. It's made me more confident and it's improved my communication skills.
Hi, welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and tonight we're talking about how to cope with cancer. 1 in 2 Canadians are going to be diagnosed with cancer during their lifetime. I'm pleased to welcome 2 breast cancer champions in the studio tonight who turn their lives around after diagnosis and are also helping other breast cancer or cancer champions in a very tangible way. First, I'd like to introduce Julie Booker. She's a mother of 4 who had breast cancer in 2011. She's the owner of a mobile wig fitting business, and it's called I'm Still Me, and she helps women and men look good and feel better in the privacy of their own homes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Barbara.
Next, I'd like to introduce Colleen Canna. She is a recovered chartered accountant and breast cancer champion turned clothing designer. Welcome to the show, Colleen.
Thank you.
Colleen, your career transition from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain is particularly striking, and after 20 years of working in a very high-powered field in accounting and finance, you decided to build your own clothing line for women who are also going through treatment, and your line is called Kokana Designs. Tell me a little bit about what really led you to that decision. It's a pretty big and brave decision.
Yes. Well, while I was going through treatment, I stepped away from the work world to go through treatment and recovery. I just decided that I really didn't want to go back to that career, that I probably never really fit into that mold. I made it work, but it was difficult, and you just get into that daily grind of going to work, meeting deadlines, and not really lifting your head up. So getting sick and having to step away from that, I could sit back and observe that. So I decided while I was going through treatment that I would go back to work on a part-time basis, but knowing that I wanted to make a career change.
So you took a slow transition back into another field. Now you're also giving some prizes away for our viewers tonight. Yes. What are you giving away? I'm
giving away a headscarf. It's made of bamboo, and also a PICC line cover for women or men who are going through treatment, chemotherapy.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for bringing those prizes. Make sure you call the number on your screen for a chance to win. Now, Julie, you're also in the business of making people look good and feel better. You're running your own mobile wig fitting business. Tell us a little bit about what that entails.
It's called I'm Still Me.
And you've also brought Thelma and Louise for us today.
That's what I've called them for this evening, yes. I do have a little bit of a terrible sense of humour.
No, it's perfect.
Yes, it's called I'm Still Me, and the reason that it's called that is because I want to try and help people realise that when they have cancer, to remember that they are still themselves. Because I think a lot of people get wrapped up because there are so many appointments, and cancer can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. I want everybody to remember they are still themselves. Don't have a big C on your head. My name is Julie. I wasn't cancer suddenly, because a lot of people can take on cancer as the identity.
As their definition.
As their definition, exactly. So that's why my company is called I'm Still Me. I found there was a big void in the market for people who lose their hair. Sometimes it's very overwhelming for people who lose their hair through chemo, and I found that some ladies, particularly more so than men, can be more devastated by the hair loss than the actual diagnosis of cancer.
So in your experience, the loss of hair is much harder on women than on men?
Oh my goodness, I've come across ladies, Barbara, who literally haven't left their house. Aside from the doctor's appointments, it is terribly sad. And to go to a salon is very, very intimidating, much more so than they can bear. They're already going through a great deal of stress. So I take the wigs to them. It's in their own home. They can have a family or friends around them to help them choose. There's no pressure. I don't mind if they don't have a wig at all. They can take as long as they like. They can pop on as many wigs as they like. And if they don't want any, that's fine. My priority more than anything is to help them through this difficult time. And I've had some ladies who are in such a mess when I get there in terms of how they feel about themselves. But literally, when I leave, we are dancing, we're clapping, we have tears in our eyes of happiness, and they are on cloud 9.
They say yes to the wig.
They say yes to the wig, and literally I have had people say yes to the wig. It is the most amazing feeling. I am so privileged to be in this position. I love what I do, and it is why I've had cancer. I'm sure it's why I've had cancer.
And you go to these people's homes in an unmarked van, so total privacy.
So it's totally private. I don't charge for the visit because I'm in it to help people. I'm not in it to make a lot of money. I charge exactly the same as the salons. There's no charge for my fee to go there. If I need to spend hours on the phone before I go, then I will do so. I just really want to help people because I know how hard some people find it. I didn't find it hard. I was very lucky. I don't know why I didn't find it hard, but I love helping people.
You've been in remission for a few years, but you're also in that unique position where you can help women who are going through it. Is it a little bit difficult for you reliving the memories of treatment?
I still wear a wig today. My hair didn't grow back. Okay. I have alopecia because of chemo.
Is that common?
It's not uncommon. Okay. It's not what people hear of. Everybody hears that they get the hair back a different colour and maybe curly or straight, whatever opposite that you had. Not for me. But that's okay, I don't have cancer.
Well, it looks very natural, it looks very beautiful, and even, you know, I'm touching these wigs and it doesn't feel synthetic.
No, and they are synthetic, and most people choose this synthetic wig because it's much easier to take care of. Human hair wigs, for one, are way more expensive, way more, they run into the thousands, but they require daily maintenance, whereas I could pop this on and I'm ready to go. Much easier.
You brought up some interesting points that we don't necessarily always think of. And Colleen, when we think of breast cancer, I think most people think of bras or bathing suits. We don't necessarily think of the clothing that goes on over it. Tell me a little bit about some of the unique challenges that you faced going through breast cancer treatment and you know, looking for clothes that made you feel good and comfortable.
Well, while I was going through treatment, I found it difficult to find clothing, particularly tops, that were soft and comfortable to wear, but were easy to slip on and off without having to lift your arm up over your head, which is particularly difficult after you have surgery.
You pulled up some photos of some of your designs up there.
So when I design, I keep sort of 5 things in mind. One is the ease of access, so that usually it has a front zip-up, or you can step in and pull it up, so you don't have to lift up your arm. And you also have easy access to your port or your PICC line during chemotherapy. The other thing is a neckline that protects you from the sun and covers any scars or incision marks. The third thing is the sleeve and armholes are cut for comfort, so it accommodates any swelling, lymphedema. And fabric is important. You want it to be soft, especially when you're going through radiation and your skin is very sensitive.
Do you find that you sweat more?
I didn't find I sweat more.
Find that either, no.
But all my clothing is made of bamboo, so it's very breathable. And you also want it to be easy to care for. And the last thing is looking good. You want something that you feel comfortable in, you look good in, which makes you feel better.
Which actually is the first thing too as well, because that helps with how you feel about when you're going through it, and that you have such lovely things.
Yes.
So looking good makes you feel better, which has a big impact on your immune system, you were saying earlier, Colleen.
Yes, I totally believe that. Yeah, if you feel better, then you're boosting your immune system, and that's going to help you heal.
Absolutely.
So, you were diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, Colleen. How did you find out?
Well, yeah, my story is a bit unique because I found my lump by myself 5 years prior to being diagnosed. We had it checked out, and every year we had it checked out, and they said it's nothing, it's just a cyst, until 5 years later it was suddenly stage 3 breast cancer. So I'm always telling women you have to be your own healthcare advocate. If you think something's wrong, then you have to push to get it looked at and diagnosed properly.
Did you have a similar experience, Julie?
I had a mammogram every year because my mum had passed away from cancer, so I had an annual mammogram, and I thought that was great. And then in January I'd had a clear one, but lo and behold in April I was diagnosed, and so obviously the lumps were there. It was only because one of mine erupted. That being said, mammogram is a great tool, so I would never say it's not a great tool, because it is. I was very lucky because mine erupted. I'm not a very large lady. However, I did apparently have dense breast tissue, because even if you're small, you can have dense breast tissue. But I was the one who found it and went to the doctor the next day and found it. So, yes, I feel fortunate. As you have just said, you need to be your own advocate. Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What kind of advice would you have for people going through it right now, Julie?
Going through cancer or finding the cancer?
Finding cancer, going through cancer, just the overall journey.
Definitely be your own advocate. I mean, Ottawa is one of the best places. If you have to have cancer, it is one of the best places to have it.
Because there's so many resources?
So many resources, and they're all up to date. When I was diagnosed, I had a wonderful surgeon, and my husband and I did say to him, what happens if we went to the States? We weren't going to do that, but would we get better or faster treatment? Absolutely not. Ottawa is a wonderful, wonderful place. It has great resources. The doctors are excellent. This is a wonderful place. Be confident in where we are, because this is a great place to have cancer if you have to have cancer. This is a wonderful, we have wonderful facilities here. The care is great. Everybody moans about the health care. Cancer care is different. And you can always find somebody with a negative story.
Of course.
But don't concentrate on the negative stories. Block your ears to it, because that will only bring you down. You don't need to hear the negative stories. Concentrate on being positive and happy with your care, because that's the only one that's going to affect you.
And we hear a lot about those negative stories, the negative effects of cancer and going through treatment and fear and anxiety. But what I've heard today from our guests is that the flip side occurs, in that going through cancer actually makes you more brave. Was that your experience, Colleen?
Yes, I think so, because once you've been through cancer, then you think, well, what else? Yeah, it could be that bad. So I think it does help you.
What do you think, Julie?
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing more important than your health. It puts everything into perspective. Really, you don't sweat about the small stuff, to coin a phrase. You really don't, and you don't surround yourself by people who are negative.
No toxic relationships.
No, and also don't be bothered about what people say about you. Obviously, that's hard. I'm a sensitive person, but the only thing that's important is your health, and then happiness, and everything else is really incidental. It really, really is. I don't know if you find that, but there's nothing more important than your health and happiness. Nothing else. Really, it doesn't matter. You don't even need. You don't need possessions.
Yeah.
You don't need anything.
There's a lot of freedom in that frame of mind, and we're just about to go to break, but when we come back, we'll hear more about some of the resources that are available to people coping with cancer in Ottawa. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break.
Get the animals out of the barn!
The fire's getting closer!
I'm on the horse!
The house is burning!
We gotta get out to the river! Get up!
Can't leave everything!
Careful! Don't fall!
Come on! We have to hurry!
I'm afraid!
There's the river! We're going to make it!
I can't swim!
Yes, you can!
Hurry! Hurry!
You must get in!
I can't!
Watch out for sparks!
His hair's on fire!
Keep their hair wet!
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
I'm Paula Roy, and I'd like to invite you to join me in my kitchen each week as I share with you my favorite recipes, hints, and tips.
To Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and in the studio tonight we're having an incredibly important conversation about cancer with breast cancer champions Julie Booker and Colleen Canna. Thank you so much for being in the studio with us tonight. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about your personal journey, and you've both shared some wonderful photos with us. Maybe, Colleen, we can start with you and pull up some of the photos that you shared with us of your beautiful family and a little bit about going through treatment. Tell me a little bit about some of the biggest realizations that you came to through your breast cancer journey.
Well, when I was diagnosed, my daughter was only 6 years old, so that was really difficult. Me and my husband grappled with, what do we tell her? Do we even say the C word? But you know, she was so sensitive that she already knew something was wrong, and so when we actually did tell her, I think it was almost a bit of a relief that she knew exactly what it was. And earlier your guests were talking about the CLIMB program for kids at the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation. My daughter actually did go through that. I was already done my treatment, and so we were through that, but it also...
There's a picture of your husband and your daughter there. Yeah.
But we found that she had a lot of anger she had pushed down, and it
you wouldn't imagine that from a 6-year-old child.
Yes, but she was quite angry, and it came out in the session, so that was really good for us.
And there you are, staying physically fit while still going through
Yes, that was
treatment.
also for the Ottawa Regional Cancer Foundation. We did the Nordic Walk together and raised funds for the centre.
Yeah. And Julie, you also sent us some photos of your family. Now, your mother had cancer.
Yeah.
And your sister.
My sister had cancer at the same time, yes.
And you sent us a very striking photo of sort of all the cousins in the family who have all been struck by or affected by cancer in one way or another. But your journey was a little bit different. Tell me about how it went for you.
It was different. I think I'm a little unusual that it didn't affect me or my kids as much as normal as other people. I have no idea why.
Do you think it's because your mother had it and your sister had it?
I don't know why. I really don't know why. I was very busy. I was decided I wasn't actually going to get cancer. That didn't actually work out. I don't know, but with my kids, first of all, actually with my mother, they just told me and my sisters she had cancer and that was it. Very scary, no information. So I always thought if I had cancer, I would deal with it very differently. Not like that at all. So when I was diagnosed, my husband and I knew that we'd tell the kids everything, absolutely everything. So we informed them from day one. A lot of people know this story, but
here is you with your family and your kids. You have 2 boys and 2 girls.
2 boys and 2 girls. Yes, that's my husband in the middle, being his usual self.
And when you were diagnosed with cancer, they were all under the age of 12. Is that correct?
They were 12, 10, 8, and 6.
Yeah.
we told the 12-year-old son, and he was worried about if we had enough money to pay for it, because that's the level of maturity at that time. Yes, luckily we get everything free. My 10-year-old daughter, she was worried, was I going to die? And would she get it? Because she's 10, she's coming to puberty, so she was just beginning to get little boobs. My 8-year-old, she looked at me and she said, "Mummy, don't worry, we've drunk all your milk." and then she said, "And anyway, yours are very droopy, so you don't need them anymore."
How nice of her to notice.
How nice of her to recognise that. And my youngest son, he said, he was only 6 at the time, he'd just had an ear infection, and he said, "Mummy, I really hope you get the banana medicine," which was amoxicillin. And I said to him, "I think so, sweetie, that I'm going to need something a little bit stronger, but I hope it tastes good too." And from then on, we just dealt with everything very openly, and every time I went, I've had a lot of surgeries since then, because I've done several reconstructions in order to try and get it right. One time they asked me, did I pick up the groceries? Because I've downplayed everything. I actually wasn't grocery shopping, I said. I went to have surgery today.
Wow.
But they've become so used to me going, and it's just not a big thing in our house. So we've dealt with it very differently.
Now we have a caller on the line. Greg, are you still with us?
Yes, still here.
Hi, Greg. Thanks so much for watching tonight. Did you have a question for our guests?
Katana, I think. Took 5 years to find out that it was actually cancerous. And it just kind of reminds me a bit of my dad, although his was cancer, but it took a long time to come up with some kind of a plan or treatment. I actually didn't really get anything, but not only having cancer must be very something to, deal with, but how did you deal with the fact that it took so long to diagnose this and find it?
That's a great question.
Well, every year when I went for the mammogram, I was always kind of like, oh, I hope they say it's okay. And they would come back and say it was okay, and then I'd carry on my way. I think now I would pay more attention and maybe push it a little bit more. But as I was going through it, I was just like, okay, we're good. I don't have to worry about it.
You took them at their word.
Yes, and until it was that stage 3 cancer, and now I look back and go, if I would do it totally differently.
What would you do differently? Because you obviously intuitively felt something was wrong.
I guess I did, but I was burying it.
Yeah.
And it's funny you should ask that, because recently I had another lump, and this time I was like, no, I need this checked, and they were trying to postpone it till after the holidays. I called my oncologist directly, and they got me in and did what they had to do, and it turned out to be nothing. But I had to push for that.
Even with us, even though you had breast cancer already?
Yeah, well, it wasn't, they were going to check it, but they wanted to wait. Right, till after the holidays. I was like, I can't go through the holidays not knowing, so
gosh, I
need to be in there.
Right?
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Greg, or did you have anything else you wanted to ask our guests?
I guess doing something differently, more than the mammogram, like taking a biopsy or something, that's what needs to be done?
Yes, I would, I would push for a biopsy, so for sure.
It sounds like you wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that help?
It's just, I wish we'd done that with my dad, but anyway. But thanks very much.
Thank you so much for watching and for sharing your story. Have a good night. And that's an interesting perspective, and it kind of highlights the role that we have to play in terms of taking responsibility for our own health. What are some of the biggest changes that you've made to your health since finding out that you have cancer? What about you, Julie?
To make healthy choices. I was just thinking to go along with that conversation, and also with the previous conversations that you had before us. I think it's hard when you leave the care of the hospital that there aren't any checks, and they don't do the MRIs and they don't do the scans anymore, and you think that they should do, because that's the safety net. That's kind of a hard loss to have. You do things to take care of your body now after you've had the cancer diagnosis, and you're free from the treatment and everything. But it's hard to be without that safety net of, you feel like you should have, not the mammogram, I don't have boobs anymore, so but without that screening process, you don't have any guaranteed safety.
And it's hard because it's always in the back of your mind that, you know, you might have a recurrence, and it's kind of finding that balance of not overreacting to every little ache or pain or cough, but then being diligent, you know, if there is something. So it's a fine line to walk.
And it sounds like it's more important than ever to tap into some of those resources that are available out there beyond just your family doctor or even your oncologist or your healthcare team. And so maybe this would be a good moment to pull up some of those resources that we've gathered after talking to local cancer patients. So there's a MapleSoft Center, which many people have brought up as a great source of support and information, everything from yoga classes to coaching. There's the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. There's also some integrative and holistic resources as well, taking into account any preventative measures that you may want to pursue. There's the Ottawa Integrative Cancer Centre and the Fascial Connections Myofascial Release and Wellness Centre. And then, of course, we can't underestimate the role that food plays in our healing. And so if you're too overwhelmed to cook for yourself or nothing really tastes good anymore, there are a couple of local women-owned personal chefs who can come to your home and cook for you, especially design meal. They do both have a background in holistic nutrition and also cooking for cancer patients. I'd also like to highlight a local company called Henna Designs Ottawa by Anissa Hahn. She does beautiful henna designs work on various parts of your body, but especially for the head, for cancer patients. Henna is 100% natural and safe, and it's actually known for its use during times of transition, so it's actually very fitting for cancer treatment. Anissa actually does a lot of fundraising, and so she does offer this service free of charge to cancer patients, which is really quite lovely and another alternative to consider when taking into account that looking good also means feeling good. Now, ladies, we have just a couple minutes left before the end of our show. I just wanted to do a quick highlight again of both of your businesses. So, Julie, you are the owner of It's Still Me.
I'm Still Me.
I'm Still Me.
Yes.
And the service that you provide going to people's homes is free of charge.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. And the wigs are also covered by insurance?
Yeah, pretty much, especially in Ottawa, because we're a government town. Most people have insurance for the wig. It's very rare that I come across someone who doesn't.
Okay. And both men and women?
Men and women, much more so women.
Okay.
Men don't seem to worry about losing their hair.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
More socially acceptable.
And there's much more choice for women. There's not a great deal of choice for men, but I will serve a men, but much more so women.
Okay. And Colleen, tell me a little bit again about your business as well and the clothing that you design and offer.
So it's called Kokana Designs, and it's a bamboo knit, Canadian-made line of clothing that is geared towards women going through breast cancer for the reasons that I talked about earlier. And yeah, everything is manufactured in the Toronto area.
And so where can we find this clothing?
I have an online store. It's at kokana.ca. And it's also the headscarves and pickline covers are at the boutique at the General Hospital. And there's a couple of boutiques, not in the Ottawa area, but in Westport and in Bracebridge in the Muskokas that carry my line as well.
And the clothing is for women?
For women, yes.
Women. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming in and sharing your stories and your expertise.
Thank you.
Viewers are lucky to benefit from your journeys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us in the studio tonight. That brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.